On today's show, we're going to do a deep dive into 3 prospects with superb second-round value in Virginia Tech's Taylor Soule, Oregon's Endyia Rogers, and South Carolina's Zia Cooke in Episode 7 of our 2023 WNBA Draft Prospect Profile Series. Let the women's basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win. Good!
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Welcome. You are the women's basketball. My name is Hunter Cruse. I'm a Saturday host covering the WNBA draft and college basketball at large. Thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. And remember, Locked On Women's Basketball is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. I'm joined by my co-host, Em Adler. Em is a beat writer for the Seattle Storm and heads our written coverage of the WNBA draft at thenexthoops.com. So we will begin our discussion today with Virginia Tech's Taylor Soule, a key piece for one of the best teams in the country. So I'll give it to Em to just go over her statistical profile.
Yeah. So let's just start with her numbers this year, which are frankly a little bit crazy in how many things she's been good at. She is at a 58.2% true shooting mark, good for in the 87th percentile among forwards per CBB Analytics, the 76th percentile in steal rate, and around the 75th percentile and higher or higher in assist rate, turnover rate, and assist turnover ratio. She's also, again, among all forwards, 88th percentile in offensive rebounding, 76th in free throw attempt rate, and Synergy has her in the 88th percentile in at-rim finishing and 85th in rim rate. To compare that to her time at Boston College, where she was for 4 years before grad transferring to the Hokies this year, basically the biggest change has been her rim rate has increased over 10 percentage points from her past couple of years as an Eagle, which has led to her jump in scoring efficiency. What is carried over with her and not changed is that excellent offensive rebounding, her avoiding turnovers, getting steals, and the occasional problems with fouls. Also, over the past 3 years, she's been a 31.8% shooter off the dribble. So that's a solid number for a change of pace thing from basically your ordinary scorer. Last weekend, actually, at the ACC tournament, I had the opportunity to ask her about adapting her game and training differently at Virginia Tech. And here's what she had to say.
Yeah, I think the reason I came to Virginia Tech was to win basketball games. I didn't really care how much I was scoring, how much I was playing. I just wanted to play alongside great people and just help that they're great basketball players. And so if it means I have to have 2 points a game, play 20 minutes, but I have 10 rebounds, and that's how we get the win, I'm willing to do that. If I have to sit on the bench and share my teammates, I'll do that. It's a fun group to be around, and so it makes my role easy, whatever that has to be any night. I've been working a lot more with Coach Brooks on some guard play. You see it when I'm taking the ball off the court, in the offense sometimes, having the ball in my hands a little bit more, and so that's similar to old roles that I've had, but definitely a little different. But I hope it can translate positively over, hopefully when I can play professional basketball, so we'll see.
Her offense, we'll start there. I think the biggest thing for her is just utilizing her body and her strength, because I think one thing you did note was you did not realize she was 5'11". Like she is big.
I honestly don't think that's correct. I don't know how to de-verify that or double check that, but she's been listed at 5'11" since she got to college. She's been listed at 5'11" at Boston College, and that doesn't make any sense. She doesn't look 5'11". She looks like 6'1".
Yeah, I was listening to Kitley and Georgia Amore's podcast with Taylor Soule, and they did say she was 6 foot, but I didn't know if that's
okay. Against Michaela Timpson at Florida State, who was 6'2", and she didn't look that much smaller.
Yeah, but in terms of her half-court offense, I think she gets to the rim so easily. She can push She can push defenders with her shoulders, with her strength. We'll see her drive at a triple threat, and it's not a case where you can't really sag off of her too much just because she's so strong. It really won't matter. She's going to get to the rim, and then in transition, I think the same thing. She uses her upper and lower body strength more than pretty much any player in this class. I would say is just utilizing her strength.
Yeah, and I mean, she has athleticism in terms of getting downhill. She's decent at bursting off the line, but she's got really good core strength and very good lateral quickness. against closeouts, against mismatches, if she has the right mentality and off the catch, she's going to, get downhill. She's really good at just going through defenders and getting to the rim and drawing that contact regardless of whether or not she finishes. And she is a really, really good finisher. Like I mentioned before, she's really athletic. She can hit it from a bunch of different angles with both hands. It's nice. The one thing I think where I might differ from you is, I don't think she's much of a downhill creator against like a straight up matchup. So if she's playing the 4 or she's playing the 3 and there's like a stronger forward going up against her, she's got a 4 across from her. She's not, to me, doing much driving, doing much, downhill creation there. Her feet are really noisy at the point of attack. And it's a little bit uncontrolled if she's trying to get downhill and just doesn't have the preset advantage there. But I don't think that necessarily she needs to be your third best offensive creator to fill a good role and to be a good player, which is why to me that's not an issue. At Virginia Tech plays with a lot more offensive talent than basically any team in the country. So relative to competition in the WNBA, she's not going to have the WNBA's version of Georgia Amore and the WNBA's version of Elizabeth Kitley and Kyna Traylor and Kayla King. She's not going to have like that level of talent surrounding her. So it's not quite the same like luxury of being literally the 5th best scorer in an offense. But like, give her a mismatch, get her the ball, and she's going to go downhill.
And I do think there's a little bit there with her passing ability as well, just as a play finisher in general. Like there was a play against Virginia in January where she attacked baseline and she planted her feet, just made like a little bit like around 2 defenders. She kind of just like placed it in to find their big on the roll. I think there's a little bit there as a passer, and like you said, she doesn't turn over the ball a lot, and that's kind of what you're looking for in these connector forwards where
she's absolutely a plus passer at the 4.
If you're coaching her and she is on your offense, how would you want to scheme her into your offensive scheme?
I'll put it this way: if you're running a mover blocker offense like the UVA men do, she's one of your blockers, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Again, because she I think is a really good gap filler. So she should be involved in a lot of pick and rolls. She should be your connective. She should be sort of your connected passer. She should be attacking closeouts. Basically, use her as a screen and roller, use her as a finisher, use her as a cutter. And she's going to return. I think she's going to return value on that end, assuming that she is actually 6'1".
And do you think there is?
What about you? What do you think there?
So yeah, I do think that she can provide value outside of the shooting, just because.
Yeah, and I think the thing with the shooting is, like, for context, she's taken more threes at Virginia Tech this year than she did her entire career at Boston College. And basically all of those threes came in October, November, and December. Like, they weren't really – she hit like a couple to start off with. It wasn't a huge number of attempts, and she's pretty much cut them out since. Her free throw numbers, her form on the 3, it doesn't really suggest to me that that's going to be like a big thing for her. And like I mentioned in this sorry, not going to be like a huge potential. But like I mentioned in the stat dive, like she hits enough off the dribble for that to be like a nice change of pace for her. She can't literally only get to the rim and finish there. So I think, as a 3rd scorer, maybe a little bit overtaxed, as a 4th scorer, maybe even a little bit overqualified. But, just as long as she's not like playing the 3 and your 4 and 5 both can't space.
Mm-hmm. And then what about on the defensive end? I think we can both agree super complete on defense.
Oh my God, dude. Her defense is so good. I love her defense so much. I mean, the way I'd easily put it is in both matchups against Louisville this year for Virginia Tech, Taylor Soule spent basically at least half her time that was on the court guarding Haley Van Lith, Louisville's like best guard, just offensive creator in general, and also they're like who they pretty much run their offensive creation through entirely. And boy, did Taylor Soule do a really damn good job against Haley Van Lith. I mean, I know I've seen a lot more of her this year just being in ACC land. I've scouted her in person. I'm wondering what you've seen in the samples that you saw.
So the first thing that popped to me is just how she positions her body. Like you said, with her core strength, I feel like every couple games, every couple quarters, she was drawing a charge. She understands how to position her body. I think her screen navigation is also pretty freaking good considering her strength.
Oh, yeah.
So I think
she's really good, like going under ball screens and then matching the handler on the other side. Even if they've already gotten downhill, she gets her body right there. And for someone who was playing your 3 or your 4, she gets over well enough.
And what kind of stinks to me is because she doesn't put up like the insane block or block numbers specifically. She won't really get acknowledged as a lead defender. It's more of like a kind of quiet thing where she subtly is, in my opinion, Virginia Tech's best defender, pretty easily.
Going beyond being Virginia Tech's best defender, I thought that, and I know our ACC beat writer Mitchell Northam also thought she was kind of robbed of an all defensive team spot on the ACC's postseason awards. There were some interesting selections on all of those teams. I'll leave that alone. I mean, as far as like just going beyond the best defender on Virginia Tech, like I would say she is maybe the 3rd, 4th best defender overall in this class.
Yeah, that's definitely where I'm at as well. I think that is why she is a top 15 prospect for me. Where are you at? I know you said that you've kind of grown on her a little bit over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I mean, I was not a huge fan of her game at Boston College when the mid-range shots were hitting in that COVID year. Then that was one thing. Her last, her senior year there, the season prior to this one, they weren't hitting as much, so that just wasn't huge for me. It was just a really inefficient offensive archetype. So I wasn't high on her coming into Virginia Tech. And then she's putting up numbers. She was just looking like an excellent, athletic connector on both ends. And I was like, oh, this is a real prospect. And then when I finally dove into her, over the past couple of weeks, I've honestly just been kind of blown away. She's been absolutely superb. And if you think that she can stick at the 4 at the next level, which, given the height I'm skeptical of, I think it's worth a shot, but I'm very skeptical of it. And that's one thing. I think the question for me mainly becomes, can she stick at the 3? If the league was set up in terms of the spacing and the rules that it works with the way that the men's NBA was, I would say she probably sticks at the 3 well enough. But the shooting gives her limited upside. In the W, I'm skeptical. No, that's not to say I'm not skeptical of everyone in this class for the most part. I'm wondering before my final judgment, sort of where you are on that, where she can stick.
So that's kind of like a common denominator for me with a lot of these prospects where I don't exactly know where she's going to stick, but I'm going to bet on her defensive ability, also just her offensive connecting ability. And I think that's enough for me to rank her in the top 15. Do you have a specific ranking where you would have her right now? Like a little bit of a range?
Yeah, it's tough. I would say that I am more optimistic about her ability to stick at the 3, or even at the 4. Honestly, like Steph Talbot plays the 4 in the league, and she's like 6'2" and doesn't really hold up that much in the post. So I would say that because I am more optimistic about her ability to stick at the 3 or the 4 than I am about Rickea Jackson's ability to play off the ball, I have Taylor Soule as a around the 8 to 9 range in the first round.
And do you think Kayla Thornton is a fair comp for her?
Yeah, honestly, I think that's a pretty good comp. I think I think Kayla Thornton, if you inverted her offensive and defensive value, then I think you're pretty much at Soule, just with less shooting from Soule, to be clear, not KT.
Yeah. But after the break, myself and Em will dive into Oregon's Endyia Rogers, and then later in segment 3, we'll talk about South Carolina's Zia Cooke. Okay, let's get into Endyia Rogers. Is one of my favorite prospects to watch just because of how she runs a pick and roll. I think she runs a really good pick and roll. She can get downhill. She's got an elite floater. Where do you think where does she rank on the stat profile?
So it's funny you mentioned the pick and roll. We can start off there. In her 2 years at Oregon, she's a USC transfer where she spent her undergrad years, transferred to Oregon ahead of the season last year. In her 2 years there, as an overall pick and roll operator, the offense ranks in the 82nd and the 87th percentiles when she's running a pick and roll, which is pretty good. Everything for her offensively, in terms of the stat profile, at least beyond that, it's the shot. She's nearly 40% from 3 this year, despite only 60% of her makes being assisted. It's a really low number. And she's shooting very well at the rim percentage. And for her career, she's shot around 38% off the dribble, which for the volume that she's taken, that is a really good mark. She's a career 35% mid-range shooter per pivot analysis, which is a solid mark if it's a change of pace for you. She's taken them about 7% above average the past couple of years. So, it's not the most efficient shot profile because she is decently below average in rim rate. And then in terms of, your ancillary skill, she's excellent at avoiding fouls. She's excellent at taking care of the ball, but she's not much of a defensive playmaker.
And just starting on just her size, I've talked to some people that are around the Pac-12, have scouted her, and I don't think she is 5'7". I don't think she's. I think she's.
Neither do I.
Yeah, I don't think she's 5'7", and she has really short steps. There's some athletic concerns there where she moves. She can kind of take advantage of it though, just because she is so smart. She plays with so much pace. But there's definitely
I would say the good news, despite the steps and the height, is at least like she has very good acceleration, speed.
Yeah, sure.
So like in terms of like lower body mobility, she makes up for the height.
How do you think she compares to another second round prospect last year in Destiny Henderson?
I mean, she's just a better, much more efficient player in most aspects of the game, honestly. Destiny Henderson, the strength for her, and I think we talked about this either last week or a couple weeks ago. Like the strength for her was the ability to control tempo, the ability to get the offense into the spots it needs to be, and just drive her teammates' efficient offenses and help set that up. That's not really Endyia Rogers' strength. She's not someone who you want to be relying on to set the tempo. You're going to want to play at the 1, maybe the 2, but you don't necessarily want her, in my opinion, to like be the establisher of the tempo. But she's a hell of a lot better than Henny was at just shooting overall, creating her own shot. Honestly, 2-player game passing. She's a hell of a lot better at just getting out of situations where she doesn't have a shot and not forcing just bad attempts at the rim.
And so when I was recently scouting her, she had like a 6 for 23 performance versus Stanford. And in that game, a lot of her misses I thought were good shots taking. She creates a lot of space. And I was like, because usually when I watch a prospect's worst game, I'm like, okay, this is rough. But I saw some stuff there where she's creating space. She's getting good looks. She's getting into her floater. So some of that stuff is helpful to
and it's really tough. It's really tough with the Ducks this year because they've basically been running like a 6.5 player rotation since basically November. And unlike some other schools that have been running short rotations, like Virginia Tech, who we just talked about, Oregon's their players clearly aren't necessarily like built for that in the exact same way, and a bunch of them are freshmen too. So pretty much everyone's kind of been gassed since like early to mid-January. So it's hard for me to watch Endyia Rogers' game against Stanford and not like notice all the shots are basically front rimming and say like, yeah, she's been bled dry over the past like 3 months. She's been the only player who hasn't seen a massive drop off on that team in efficiency since they got to the conference schedule. I think that caveat comes with that performance.
And Oregon also kind of spams pick and roll, it feels like. They're like 90%.
Yeah, it's – how do I say this politically? Their offense is not the most interesting thing you'll ever see. They have a lot of talent, and it feels like they're running the Coach K Duke offense from like 2006 at the latest.
Yeah, and they have some talent.
It is fair to say, and I've heard, certainly a number of people around the industry noting it for the past couple of years. It's fair to say that they don't particularly do anything to maximize their own talent.
And what have you seen from her on the defensive end?
So speaking of things that Oregon does to non-maximize their own talent, Oregon asks its guards to fight over every ball screen. It doesn't ask anyone to provide any sort of male help. It rarely provides much in the way of secondary rim protection from opposite corners. It doesn't involve a whole lot of switching unless the players are asking for it themselves, just improvising on the court. It's fair to say that Kelly Graves is very bad at coaching a defense. just overall. I think that's been abundantly clear for a number of years. And it's so unfortunate. Like they are running a scheme which does not help any of their starting guards, Chance Gray, Endyia Rogers, or Tina Palpao. For me, and we talked about this before, it's tough. It's really tough to evaluate what I think of Endyia Rogers' defense. What's very clear is she's not that good going over balls, fighting over ball screens and recovering. Like, she can get over, but she does not recover that well. She's okay preventing dribble penetration in ISO, but mostly just in the way that, like, she is able to kind of stick with the player, but not really prevent them from getting downhill much. Beyond that, like, what does Endyia Rogers look like in a scheme that provides actual help defense? Probably not a whole lot better, but is she a passable defender? What does she look like if she's able to go under ball screens? I frankly have no idea. I'm not optimistic, but I think when we're talking about her profile, I think it basically comes down to what you think of her playing for a coach that is just a better tactician than Kelly Graves.
And they also don't play a big rotation, like you said, so it's kind of hard to just, like, understand, okay, is this defensive lapse because of the scheme? Is it because she's tired from running so much pick and roll and just having so much of an offensive usage? Or is it because she's just not that great on defense? It's kind of hard to differentiate some of this stuff as well. So,
and I'm not sure necessarily that she is the kind of, like, off-ball mover on offense where you – I'm not sure she's in the kind of off-ball mover on offense where you would take the ball out of her hands a significant portion of the time to save energy for defense and still maintain that same value. So I'm not sure it's a huge concern for me as much.
No, but she's not going
to be playing
less offense. She's not going to be playing 38 minutes a game. I mean, I think she's more of like a backup level stuff.
No, that's fair. That's very fair. I think, yeah. So when you take those things into consideration and when you try to project, like, given, you know, what we're able to see, what this looks like in a different role, what do you come out to with your eval?
So I think I'm higher on her to run a backup point guard. I think she has some of the stuff I look for in, like, pace, being able to run a good pick and roll. Some of that stuff is thinking, like, I think she can play 15, 20 minutes a night. I think if I'm comparing her to Destiny Anderson, like I said earlier, I think there's some more offensive juice there. I don't think she's as good on defense as Henny, but she has, I think she's just okay. I think it's pretty much all you need for her to just kind of be okay on defense and just be a good offensive player. I'm curious to see if the shooting will stick because hoping it's not an outlier season. I don't think it is because I like her form, I like her touch. So, yeah, I think she is a first-round.
If you were just watching this season, and I didn't include this in the stat breakdown, but if you were just watching this season, you would think, oh, that is an elite shooter. This is the first time in her career at college that she shot basically above 32% from three. Although she's always had excellent free throw shooting numbers. So this is probably closer to what she is than her career beforehand.
Yeah. So after the break, we will dive into South Carolina's Zia Cooke, who is probably the most discussed player on this list. So we'll get into that after this break. Looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all the fat and calories, then you got to try a Built Bar. We've got through the holidays. I know the goal is to eat a little bit healthier this year. If you're like me and you want to eat healthier, you don't want to compromise taste, then, man, I've just got this thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, health is actually tasty. Seriously. They're delicious. You won't think they're good for you. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they are covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built Bar does it, but these Built Bars taste like candy bar while having amazing macros. And what's even better is that they are healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't want to wait for it to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built Bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk into a pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. If you're close to Sam's Club, run and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. Okay, let's get into South Carolina's Zia Cooke. I have wavered on her more than any other prospect. Some nights you're watching her and she looks like a first-round pick. Other nights you're wondering is she even a prospect? So yeah.
Zia Cooke is basically the reason that I started taking notes on prospects before they are even seniors. Just having watched, South Carolina a little bit last year, and we'll get into why in a second. But for the stat breakdown, let's start with the good. She's around 53% true shooting this year. She's averaging more assists than turnovers and has been excellent avoiding turnovers for her career. Is a career 34.5% shooter from three. Is around the mid-30s on pull-up J's, a pretty good mark. And she is shooting this for her career 35.9% on contested jumpers per synergy. That's the good. The bad. She is a worse open shooter than guarded at only 33.1% on uncontested J's. Is well above average for the position in the rate of shots coming off the dribble, which is less efficient per synergy, and is mostly just a non-playmaker defensively. I think she's a solid defender, but this is the stat. So that's the good, that's the bad, and the ugly. She is a career 46% finisher at the rim per pivot analysis, is at 32.5% shooting on non-paint twos, but they've been over a quarter of her total career attempts for CBB analytics. And this year was the first year that she's gotten to at least 50% true shooting, and her first year averaging more assists than turnovers.
So with Zia Cooke, like I said, she'll have games where, even at the SEC tournament, she had the game against, I think it was Arkansas, where she was completely off. There was a game earlier this season where she was against UConn. She was completely off. And what gave me more promise was at some point this season, she started to perform better versus real opponents. And that's kind of fell off a little bit recently. I know she had that good game in the SEC tournament, but I don't know how to project her, because there's some stuff there where second side creating, she can sometimes get to have those tough pull-up jumpers. Other times she will take those tough pull-up jumpers, some really bad misses. Where are you at on how you would kind of see her being utilized?
If we're talking about the offense, the weird thing for me with her is we can look at prospects and do some. I was going to say some biomechanical analysis from afar, but you actually saw her in person, so you can say that you can do some biomechanical analysis in person. I actually did see in person the past season as well. But we can look at prospects like Shayla Gonzalez or Celeste Taylor or Maddie Segrist, and we can figure out things about their jumper, and we can say this is why something's working, this is why something isn't working. With Maddie Segrist, like we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, she holds the jumper so high, that's why she plays above her height. With Celeste Taylor, the elbow juts out a lot, and it just takes a while to load up, and that's why the volume is limited. With Zia Cooke, it's weird. She had two pretty awful shooting seasons from three, and a couple quite good seasons, including this year, and her 3-point percentage is around slightly above average where you want it, but her form is perfect. Her form is textbook. Her footwork is immaculate. Her load up is great. She never really hesitates when she's going up with the ball, and she has basically the exact same form off the dribble as off the catch. It doesn't make any sense why she's not actually even better. She's so smooth into it. She's such an elite athlete offensively. She has a really, really damn good handle. Frankly, there are so many things to love with her game. She's so good at getting downhill when she wants to. She's so good just crossing over opponents, going behind the back, even pulling off a spin here or there. I honestly don't know why that jumper doesn't fall more.
And she's so slippery, like you said. She can get downhill. She can. There's
she
so
is
much.
The toughest. I think she's legitimately the toughest player in the country to guard if you're the same height as her.
But she's worse against an open shot. It makes no sense.
There's a thing. So recently, the Los Angeles Clippers added Russell Westbrook, who was so much of a non-shooter that their odds of a championship actually decreased when they added him. The Warriors played them, I want to say a week or so ago, and they literally had a game plan, which was when he's open, just leave him open from three. They stuck their center on him, and they had Draymond Green just patrol the paint instead of actually guarding him. And he's a terrible shooter. He was terrible in that game as well. But the Draymond Green's comments in postgame were basically he was basically asked about that strategy, and he basically said this was the game plan that we were told in shoot around. We went with it. And, the thing is sometimes like when in basketball, you're taught when you're open, take the shot. When you're so open all the time, it starts getting in your head. And, it's up for debate whether that's actually what happened in that game or whether Russ is just that bad of a shooter that it doesn't matter. But I think it's possibly fair to say that the thing with Zia Cooke is she's so open all the time, given how teams pack the paint against South Carolina's defense or South Carolina's post offense, that like there might be a fair amount of mind games going on with her as to, like getting in rhythm and shooting when you're open, because you're getting the ball open in the corner basically every play. I'm not sure that that's something that I can actually step and go off of, but that is really like when I grasp at straws here, that's the only thing I can pull.
And then also it's kind of hard to contextualize some of her rim finishing just because the paint is so packed sometimes where she's driving into 2 to 3 players.
Yeah, and you can figure it out in transition a little bit, like just trying to scout some of these things. There are times when she makes very nice finishes, and there are times when she doesn't even get to the rim as much as she should have, and it doesn't make any sense. At least per synergy this year in transition, she's shooting 53.8% at the rim, which is fine. It's not good. It's not bad. It's fine. Of a mark, you want it to be higher, but like for a guard of her height, it's fine. And that's really the thing for me about her height, just rounding out like the offensive questions, is like I said, she has been elite at avoiding turnovers every year. This is also her first year averaging more assists than turnovers. She's not a playmaker in basically any way, shape, or form. Even in the 2-player game, there's not much there. So she has a wing offense, but she's at the guard spot because you can't play her at the 3 with her height.
You can't.
You really need a lot of value-added passing at your 3, 4, and 5 to make up for, if you're going to plug her in at the 2, I think. You also need defense there. But I think, to me, at least on the defensive side, switching gears a little bit, she was pretty bad, in my opinion, defensively last year. I think this year she seems to have improved quite a bit. I'm wondering what you've seen there.
So I think I like you said, she's got some good size, I think, in terms of like her lower body strength as well. I think she's good as like a screen navigator. I like some of that stuff. Yeah,
like I think Z is just good at like navigating through screens, and she's good at recovering to players in general. She's okay on closeout. She's not a particularly good, I think, defender off the ball. But if she is playing your on ball role, I think she's fine enough. And I think just sort of playing like face up chaser, she's firmly like in the good enough category. I think like we've talked about this in other spaces, but like within the scheme South Carolina runs, Bree Beal is like built directly for that because she's so disruptive against players at the point of attack, and she forces so many issues with them. It doesn't matter that she's kind of really bad at getting through screens and recovering. That doesn't matter because of their backline help. I think Zia Cooke is kind of in like the opposite camp, where she's not really disruptive, but she's just really good at like sticking with players at the point of attack. So I think there's strengths and weaknesses here.
And yeah, so how would you rank these 3?
Overwhelming though.
How would you rank these 3 prospects like in this class?
I mean, obviously Soule plays a little bit of a different position than Rogers and Cooke, and all of them play kind of slightly different roles anyway. Mm-hmm. Like I said, Soule I have around number 8. Rogers I have basically like just a few spots lower, late first round. Cooke for me is like in the last tier here. Cooke for me is in this near non-prospect tier. She's not shooting well enough from 3 for me to make up for the other issues, and she's still not hitting off the jumper as well as it looks like she should, and well enough to make up for lackluster finishing and just being mostly a non-playmaker. I have her honestly like a mid to late second round grade at best. I would rather take a chance on some of the players that we're going to talk about next week when we go through the class of shooters. I would just much rather take a chance on Mike Sell, Lou, even like Leah Brown filling the role that you want here.
Yeah, so I don't think I'm as high on you in terms of Soule. I have her like early second round. Same with Rogers, but so like I technically have Rogers at 11 right now, but I only have 9 first round grades in this class. And then also I think Zia Cooke is a little bit lower in that late second round, like 17 to 22 range, somewhere in there. And Yeah, I think when we're talking about trying to find second round value, Soule, I think, is like the connecting ability. Is there some intrigue there? And then with Rogers, you're talking about just some of the skills that there's not a lot of prospects in this class have. Just having a guard that can run a good pick and roll. There's not many players in this class that I can actually trust to do that. And then on Cooke's level, we were talking about one of the best players and one of the best teams in the country. She has good form. She has good, like, a solid defensive ability. She's improving some of her turnovers as well, and that's something I would still take in the second round, because if she could find some shooting consistency, I think we are talking about a player that could generate first round value, or she could flame out. There's a fine line between some of her abilities.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of what you're talking about with the first round grades, like if we sort of using the baseball model that we use on our boards here of future value, or of like the role players, if you're comparing it directly to like what Baseball Prospectus uses for their like specific grade numbers. Like last year, I had 11 players in that class at a 40 future value or higher. This is on a 20/80 scale. 40 is about an average bench player, and I would consider that as like your median outcome. I would consider that about a first round grade. I had, I think, 11 players graded that last year. This year I have 4. So, and Soule is in the next. Yeah, so I had Soule as like a solid, like high second round grade overall. But I have 4 first round grades this year.
I do think there's going to be at least 9 players that stick in this class, just based on historical precedent.
Oh, I do too, and I think next year, when we look at like when eventually we talk about next year after this draft is over, like we're going to have players next year in the middle of the second round who get first round grades.
Right. So thanks for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen banana. Make your second listen game to game NBA. Every game across the NBA. And Locked On Game to Game covers every game across the NBA with local analysis only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast.